Welcome back to Common Ground, where we take a hard look at America's toughest divides and search for a path forward. This is episode 6. Today, we're asking, how does a culture of bullying, scapegoating, and political extremism create lone wolves in our communities? And what role does MAGA's crusade play in fueling this dangerous cycle? We have a difficult but important conversation ahead. So let's get started.
On August 27, 2025, tragedy struck Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. A former student, 23-year-old Robin Westman, opened fire during a school mass, killing 2 children and injuring 17 others before taking her own life. Robin had attended that very school years ago, and her mother worked on staff at the church until 2021. Investigators are calling the attack a domestic terrorism act and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Incredibly, it was already the 146th incident of gun violence at a U.S. primary or secondary school this year. The community is shattered, and once again, Americans are asking how something like this could happen.
What happened next followed a disturbing pattern. Prominent MAGA-aligned politicians and pundits immediately seized on the shooter's transgender identity, highlighting it above all else. Instead of focusing on guns, security, or mental health, they vilified an entire community. We saw the same playbook after the Nashville school shooting in 2023. Conservative figures fixated on the shooter being trans and used it to scapegoat transgender people. Gun reform advocates noted this was just a distraction from the root issue of easy access to firearms. Meanwhile, basic reforms that might actually prevent shootings, like universal background checks or red flag laws, get ignored, buried under culture war outrage. It's a smokescreen of scapegoating that avoids the hard questions and lets the cycle of violence continue unchecked.
The problem runs deeper than any one incident. The U.S. Secret Service found that 80% of school attackers had been bullied by classmates before their rampage. Research also shows bullied teens are nearly 50% more likely to carry a gun to school compared to their peers. America's epidemic of bullying is literally breeding despair and anger. Now, consider how MAGA's culture often glorifies intimidation and mocks those seen as weak or woke. The loudest voices in that movement call political opponents snowflakes, demonize LGBTQ youth, and preach an almost survival of the fittest mentality. It's a bully culture. Strong men are celebrated for cruelty, and some of the abused little men eventually lash out violently in response. To be clear, bullying never excuses atrocities, but it helps explain why these eruptions keep happening. A society that tacitly endorses humiliation and brutality will inevitably produce individuals who turn to brutality themselves.
Layered on top of the bullying is a rising religious extremism. MAGA's Christian nationalist wing openly argues that the United States should be governed by a rigid, ultra-conservative interpretation of Christianity, essentially a modern crusade. Even Republican leaders have warned about this trend. GOP Congressman Adam Kinzinger, for example, blasted colleagues pushing Christian nationalism and said we must oppose the Christian Taliban. President Biden, for his part, has cautioned that the extreme MAGA ideology is veering into semi-fascism, embracing authoritarianism, political violence, and an intolerance of diversity. The data on political violence is chilling. The Anti-Defamation League found that every extremist killing identified in 2022 was tied to right-wing extremism, with an especially large share driven by white supremacist hate. So when MAGA hardliners wrap themselves in the flag and Bible while encouraging fear of the other, it's not patriotism. It's a toxic crusade. It's fueling hatred, empowering violent extremists, and tearing communities apart, rather than healing them.
Esto ha sido Common Ground, episodio 6. El movimiento MAGA puede ser responsable de inflamar algunas de estas corrientes peligrosas: el bullying, el chivo expiatorio, el extremismo. Pero como estadounidenses, todavía tenemos el poder de elegir un camino diferente. Podemos elegir la empatía en lugar de la crueldad, el pluralismo en lugar de la teocracia y la acción en lugar de la distracción. Nuestro terreno común es el simple credo de que nuestros hijos deben crecer seguros y que nuestros vecinos merecen vivir sin temor al odio. Está en todos nosotros romper con este ciclo. Hasta la próxima. Cuídense y sigamos buscando ese terreno que compartimos todos.